So I have been already introduced. Thank you very much. So before we begin, I just wanted to share one line about my personal passion. I am very passionate about Kathakali, a traditional Kerala dance. So I am a dancer and a composer in Kathakali, and these are all different pictures of myself in various characters in Kathakali. So with that small note, let us begin our session for the day. So roughly, this is the outline. We will talk about uh, an introduction to artificial intelligence, and then what is machine learning, what is data science, how data science is related to machine learning, and then we will touch upon introduction to deep learning, its differences and applications. And I will end the session with giving some pointers, some websites and URLs for learning and doing some projects on machine learning, deep learning, data science. Since I shared my full screen over here, I may not be able to see questions that are coming up in the chat box. So once in a while, I will pause here, go back and check the chat box. Or if you have some questions that need immediate attention, feel free to talk and ask questions. No problem at all. If I do not know the answer, I will later come back to you. And the slides and other materials will be shared later over through the college. So you will be able to get the materials for your reference. So sir, I hope you started the recording. Disclaimer, I am not an expert in machine learning and data science. I intend to share some knowledge I have to help you kickstart your interest. I have been informed that audience are new to this area and this is a beginning first session of the 5-day workshop. So this will be a gentle introduction to machine learning and data science. For all guys who are forced to be here today, please enjoy Dilbert cartoons and pictures of countries I have been. Just kidding. But you can enjoy some of the cartoons and pictures. So let's begin the session with the hot topic of current day, the novel coronavirus. So what am I talking about? Corona, while I was supposed to talk about data science, right? So if I just take some of the newspaper screenshots once Corona came up, you can see here, scientists are identifying potential treatments for coronavirus via artificial intelligence. Coronavirus brings China's surveillance state out of the shadows, and AI applications surge as China battles to contain coronavirus epidemic. You remember these news are all from January, February. That is why all about China. Now today, if I take similar news, it will be all over the world, isn't it? So what I try to bring up is coronavirus, to battle coronavirus for treatments and for many other things, artificial intelligence techniques, including data science, machine learning principles are heavily used across the globe. So see here a few examples of what it does. There is a power plant on top where people cannot go and observe because of social distancing and other measures. So a robot can monitor and give alarms, or a courier delivery via a drone, or medicine delivery via a drone, or a hospital uses a robot to deliver water and medicines to patients. See, everything are real examples of using machines, using robots, or using artificial intelligence techniques to uh, battle with corona. And now data science even more is heavily used in other areas, like use existing data to manipulate and try to find drug discovery, identify diseases earlier, understand which area has more serious situations, so on and so forth. Everything using the vast amount of data that are being collected. Let me tell you about one company. The company name is Blue Dot. Blue Dot is an artificial intelligence company, made its first alert on December 31st. This was ahead of the US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which made its own determination on January 6th about this new pandemic that is coming out. So, how does a simple company detect such an outbreak much before even the government finds it out and then announces it. We will wonder, right? And that is the power of artificial intelligence. So what the founder of Blue Dot says is, we are currently using natural language processing and machine learning to process vast amount of unstructured data, currently in 65 languages, to track outbreaks of over 100 different diseases every 15 minutes around the clock. So this is what Kamran Khan, the founder of Blue Dot, said. So you see, materials, news articles, and social media information, tweets and posts about different diseases over multiple languages are being processed. And remember, they are unstructured text data. I mean, I may post it in Malayalam, you may post it in Tamil or English or Hindi or what language, what not. And then we need techniques to process that data. So data analytics and data science comes into picture, and use machine learning algorithms or natural language processing NLP algorithms to process the data and then detect potential outbreaks, potential spread, and things like that. If we did this work manually, we probably need some 100 people to do it on time, and that can be done by a single machine. So see the power of data science and machine learning all together in a blend to help even detect such a pandemic much before the government has officially declared it. So with that small introduction to how artificial intelligence, data science, and machine learning is being used for such a pandemic situation, let's start our basics. So what is artificial intelligence? According to dictionary, the study of the modeling of human mental functions by computer programs is nothing but artificial intelligence. So which means whatever we think in our mind, how we make a decision, can a computer program do that? An attempt to do that is nothing but artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, the word is composed of two words, artificial and intelligence. So we know what is artificial. Artificial is nothing but anything which is not natural and created by humans. It could be the computer in which you are listening to this talk. It could be the headset that you kept to listen to the talk. It could be anything that is not human, that is not natural, is artificial. So, and intelligence means the ability to reason, understand, plan, etc. So any code that helps mimic or build the knowledge that humans have, the intelligence that humans have, can be called as an artificial intelligence. Okay, so possible applications of artificial intelligence, there are endless applications for it, right? From image analytics, graph analytics, we have seen how it helps in Corona itself, right? If you just imagine, it is used in Corona for discovering new medicines, testing medicines, vaccines, treating patients, and other side activities like medical medicine delivery, and understanding the spread, and so many things where we can use artificial intelligence for such a simple situation of a disease. And then imagine everything else. We live in the world of artificial intelligence on everything. We depend on it for many things, knowingly and unknowingly. Let me take an interesting story. Can you think what McDonald's has to do with artificial intelligence? Yeah. So McDonald's last year acquired a company called Dynamic Yield, which is an artificial intelligence company. And see the news title, very nice. A burger, French fries, and some artificial intelligence with your next McDonald's order. What does that mean? If you think what McDonald's will make use of an artificial intelligence technology with, definitely a lot of applications. Some of you may have tasted McDonald's food in the past. I have tasted it from multiple countries, for example, and believe me, it tastes the same, exactly same across the globe, wherever I go. And now, how McDonald's can use artificial intelligence is multiple ways. One, for example, the display shown on the menu shown on the display in their outlets. What if it changes dynamically based on the weather outside or the time of the day automatically? Like until around when the breakfast menu items are getting over, it automatically switches to lunch items in the menu without anyone manually doing. Now suddenly it rains, so maybe a cold coffee option is not shown anymore, but the menu shows hot coffee and hot tea. So that is wonderful, right? It detects weather, it detects stock, and determines what needs to be shown on the menu. Similarly, you have been to a McDonald's in, say, Chennai, and now you are traveling to London, and you went to a McDonald's in London. It saw your preference, what you have ordered in Chennai in the past. It can potentially tell you, oh, we do not have a paneer burger here, but we have this potato veggie burger, which is similar in taste. Would you like to try? So the system can make real-time recommendations and additional items for the customer based on what they have already ordered. Isn't it beautiful? How so this is what they intend to do. So potentially, for when you go to such outlets, you are going to see a similar experience. Like I have this particular coffee shop in Coimbatore. Whenever I go, without even me telling, he will take a black coffee for me, black tea for me. He knows my preference. That is not artificial intelligence, that is human intelligence. Now the same thing being built automatically by machines so that it works across the globe seamlessly with a very good experience to the customers is the use of artificial intelligence. Now remember, for this you need data. For this you need algorithms. That is where data science, machine learning, everything comes into picture. Soon we will see how integral data science and machine learning are and how integral they are with artificial intelligence. So let's see a little more on understanding how artificial intelligence is related to machine learning and what machine learning is. So you see here, artificial intelligence processing data is simple, in a very simple way, data science, data analytics. And now when you process it for making intelligent decisions, it is data science clubbed with artificial intelligence. And now you see something that span across both of these fields are machine learning. Learning techniques or machine learning techniques are something that span across or that is very fundamental for understanding and doing data science, data analytics, data mining, and also with artificial intelligence like natural language processing, reasoning, knowledge representation, searching, planning, everything. So machine learning is very integral component of both of these. Foundation and data science itself is overlapping a lot with artificial intelligence for the same reason. So before we understand what is data science, let me ask you, what is machine learning? Take a moment, enjoy the Sydney Opera House. A picture that I have taken back in 2015, I believe. Okay. So machine learning is the field of study that give computers the ability to learn without being explicitly programmed. So one way of making things, making computers smart for artificial intelligence is I can program. If weather is this, do this. If stock is this much, display this. I can write. So that cannot be machine learning because we have written all the intelligence throwing, putting if-else conditions. That is potentially a decision-making system. Yet another, but it still is artificial intelligence. Now, another way of doing it is without writing such code, we are potentially bumping data. I'm saying a picture of a man saying this is man, a picture of a woman saying this is woman, man, woman, man, man, woman, 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 man, man, like this. I am uploading some 10,000 or 1 lakh pictures and telling each picture to be a man or a woman. And now the algorithm try to understand the difference between a man and a woman by looking at these pictures. And then you give a fresh picture of a somebody, the machine should be able to tell man or woman. If the machine is able to tell, that is machine learning applied. Okay, so a simple term, machine learning means making prediction based on data. Now, at a high level, what is machine learning? Machine learning involves some of these elements. Machine learning can be supervised learning or unsupervised learning. We will see more about each of these terms soon, so don't worry. And from the learning, you are trying to extract some features and then apply your data to some learning algorithms. That algorithms can help you do prediction, help you do grouping, clustering, and whatnot, anything that you wish to do. A quick history. Intuition used to be there long back. And in early 1900s, manual analysis, manual calculations to predict outcomes started coming. And then in 1970s, statistical programming languages came into picture, where you use a programming language to do statistics. Statistics is nothing but data processing, right? You have some data, you want to process and understand what is a mean, median, variance, and much more. So, and from that came visual statistical software, where I can see dashboards, visualization, graphs, like Tableau, for example, is a visual software to see things visually based on data behind. And now what we have is automated machine learning. You just dump data, machine understands how to process the data, how to learn from the data, and how to interpret and how to give you predictions or results. Now, if machine learning is so awesome, why do we think it is very hard? What do you see in this picture? Two cute cutie pies, right? Two cutie kids. But what does a machine see this as? A bunch of codes, zeros and ones, right? Or assume you have handwritten letters in this picture. I want to identify all number 2 from this picture. And see, you yourself will find some of them very tough, right? Maybe the first one doesn't look like 2, but it may be 2. Maybe this one also looks like 2, but it is a 3. Or this is somewhat looking like 7, but it's also can be 2. It's so difficult for us itself. So imagine a machine. Maybe you can train for one particular way of writing 2, not all other ways. It's very tough. All different ways human can write. Or another reason why machine learning is very hard. These pictures, you can identify. First one is an apple. And this is an Apple's logo, where that apple is not a eating apple, it's a company, Apple Corporation. And this is a peach fruit. So how do you distinguish? Maybe this is red in color, it's a fruit, it's oval in shape. This is a white in color, it's a logo, it is cut oval shape. This is red in color, fruit, but round in shape. So by looking at the shape, the color, the texture, and many different features, we identify it as an apple. So understand how difficult it will be for you to teach a computer to identify an apple as an apple. So forget about a drug discovery. Such a simple term of identifying a kid or identifying a letter or identifying a fruit is so difficult with machine learning. But we have achieved so much, right? We are able to even discover new drugs. So forget about even apple. What if I want to identify an image as a cat or not a cat? Wow, very difficult. We can identify quickly, but for a machine, this may looks like if you have a close-up picture of a cub of a tiger, that will also look like a cat, or some dogs will look like a cat. So how do you identify? You look at it. Does it have fur, whisker, claws, and it has this type of ear? How the ear looks like? How the tails look like? How does it make noise? The noise is only if you have voice data. Otherwise, even that is not present from an image. So you have to look at multiple things to finally recognize this as a cat. Okay. So we understood very fundamentals of artificial intelligence. We understood the very fundamentals of machine learning and how machine learning is an integral component of artificial intelligence. We also understood why machine learning is very, very hard. Now, with that basic introduction, let's keep it aside. We'll come back soon. Let me introduce data science. And see this small street where a train goes through the middle of houses. This is a beautiful scene that you can see in Vietnam, Hanoi, the capital city of Vietnam, where people are living in these houses. They were inside only because the train is coming. That's all. Okay. So before we move on to data science, some interesting numbers. In 2020, every person will generate 1.7 megabytes in just a second. So it's not will, we are now, isn't it? We are generating. While this talk is going on, last 30 minutes, every person who is in this talk has generated 1.7 megabytes MB times 30 seconds, 30. So around 50, 60 by mega MB of data by each one of us. And there are billions of people around the world. Or can you imagine a WhatsApp users exchange up to 65 billion messages daily? You just imagine how many messages you typed in a day and then multiply by number of people who uses WhatsApp. Huge. And today it would take a person approximately 181 million years to download all the data from the internet with a high-speed supercomputer. That much data is already there in internet. IDC forecast that there we will be producing 165 zettabytes per year by 2025. Or number of IoT devices would rise to 41.6 billion by 2025. Huge numbers, right? The numbers look huge. So, and imagine there are 35 zettabytes of data is created already in 2020, and see what is 35 zettabyte. The number of zeros is uncountable, huge number of zeros, that many bytes of data. And every day we are currently creating 2.5 quintillion bytes of data. And quintillion is another word for exabyte. So we are generating 2.5 exabytes of data. And if I put all those data into Blu-ray disc, 10 million Blu-ray discs are required to fill all the data that are produced in a single day. And if I put all those Blu-ray disc one on top of the other, 4 Eiffel Towers height worth is required. That much of Blu-ray disc will come one on the another. You just imagine the number of good morning messages you pass to your friends, the number of videos that you upload into YouTube or posts that you share in Facebook and everything. All of them actually contribute to this much data. So this shows the magnitude of data that we have, that we are generating on a day-by-day basis. Huge amount of data, and that is completely unstructured, unorganized, distracted. So having so much of data, what is data science? Data science as it's practiced is a blend of red blue fueled hacking and espresso inspired statistics. You know, Red Bull is a very energy drink, and espresso is coffee with a rich caffeine. That is also a good energy drink to keep you awake and do things. So, data science actually is a blend of these two things. A lot of hacking skills, which essentially means data manipulation skills, understanding how to interpret data, and also statistical skills. How do we process data? And he also says data science is a civil engineering of data, which means it accolates, possesses a practical knowledge of tools and materials coupled with theoretical understanding of what is possible. And this is said by the MetaMarket CEO Mike Driscoll. Let me show you one more definition. This is by the founder and CEO of Kaggle, Anthony Goldblum. I classify a data scientist as someone who writes code in order to produce inputs. A data analyst or business analyst, on the other hand, learns primarily on tools like Tableau or X. And what about data scientist? Data scientist's role can also span a wider set of responsibilities, and he could be doing anything from writing pivot tables all the way through training machine learning models. So a lot of responsibilities that a data scientist handles. Now, this messaging from Kaggle CEO came during an interview with HackerRank founder. So if you are interested, you can go through that interview in this blog where he speaks more about it. So if I take data science little more, it has a lot of things from statistics, mathematics, which are analytical techniques, to domain expertise on doing pattern recognition and data mining, and business analysis using artificial intelligence and machine learning, and storytelling ability of data visualization, hypothesis testing, and then communication, business communication through data modeling, and consulting through big data solution engineering, exploratory data analytics, to solving problems using modeling and prescriptive analytics. Wow, a lot of things, right? The world is not far where the boy who proposed to a girl says that, sweetheart, my neural network predicts that you and I are 98.9% compatible. No more horoscope matching required. Neural networks matching is enough. Will you be my Valentine? So the world is not far away from doing that. So what is the life cycle of a data science? Data science is, this is a compressed view of the previous slide. So you can see it's a mixture of mathematics and statistics, machine learning, domain knowledge, IT, and software development. It's primarily the science used to uncover hidden patterns from data. So you can see slowly the importance of machine learning, mathematics, and statistics behind data science. So what are key ingredients of data science? Statistical techniques, machine learning algorithms, and data analysis models. Blending all these together will give you the primary thing of what you wanted from machine learning. So what to do with exploding data? We said there are 2.5 exabyte of data generated per day. And what do we do? So companies are flooded with data and they face challenges handling voluminous data, caching critical information, having an eye for detail, evaluating and choosing the right solutions. And they also need mechanisms for providing solutions, identifying opportunities. How do we crunch and make sense out of this volume of data? How do we make good decisions with this data? And how do our decisions meet customer needs and requirements? And then can we also resolve future challenges? For example, understanding potential business opportunities, for customer segmentations, which customer to focus on, and then having analytical insights, ability to visualize, and decision-making capabilities. All this makes you a successful data scientist. So how data science is creating its impressions, you can see from traveling to healthcare to sales to credit insurance to automation and marketing, everywhere data science is used. So traveling, for example, how do we apply dynamic pricing? Have you seen airlines show pricing based on the demand, based on number of people who are trying to book the ticket and so many things, to predicting flight delay, how much potential delay that flight has? Everything happens through data science. And we already spoke a good example of healthcare on disease prediction, vaccine discovery, and medication effectiveness. A lot of things are studied through data science. So some samples from daily life. I'm sure most of you have a Facebook account, and Facebook uses artificial intelligence heavily on its platform, which is ranging from textual analysis to facial recognition. So when you upload a picture, it tries to tag people automatically, right? How does it do? It essentially uses data science and machine learning to do that. Or targeted advertising, designing AI applications in Facebook, crime detection, offensive video detection, lot of things. What about Google? I would say Google is a company who uses data science and machine learning heavily. Machine learning and data science are everywhere at Google. Simple examples like Google Translate. So I have been to China once, and believe me, I was on Mauna Vratham, silence fast for those 3 days. Hello, somebody is telling something.
வீடியோ ஆன் பண்ணுங்க அர்ச்சனா வீடியோ ஆன் பண்ணுங்க அதிமன் வீடியோ ஆன் பண்ணுங்க
Can you see my screen?
வாய்ஸ் கேக்குதா இல்லையா?
Yes sir, it is visible.
Okay, somebody is talking, that's why I'm asking. Okay, so when I have been to China, nobody there speaks to me in anything because they do not speak English, and unfortunately I don't speak Chinese too. So Google Translate is an effective tool over there which translates language to language. So by this arrow mark, which is written in Russian here, it says access to city in English. So I know, okay, how do I go to a city? If I do not have this machine learning or data science capability, how do I go and traverse? Wow, very tough. Or Google Voice Search, Google Photos, smart reply that you have seen in your email boxes. I'm sure you have seen it, right? And Google Maps uses for understanding the current traffic level of a city, the destination where you are going, what time it is going to close, how much parking is left over in that place, so that you know if parking is limited, you may want to park elsewhere and go to your place. And if I simply put a snapshot of various companies who are doing business based on artificial intelligence, it is endless. I need some 100 slides to show that. This is a snapshot of that. Okay, so let me give a recap on the definition of machine learning. It is a science of getting computers to act without being explicitly programmed. It's a subset of artificial intelligence which uses statistical techniques, methods to enable machines to improve its experience. Okay, let's take a brand new example, a complete basic example of how, given you have some data, how do you manipulate, how do you deal with it. So I call this as example 101. Suppose we want to create a system that tells us the expected weight of a person based on its height. Firstly, we collect data. Data is everything. You need data for everything. Each point on the graph represents a data point. So you see here, x-axis represents height in centimeter, y-axis represents weight in kg. So to start with, we have data. I try to put a simple straight line, w equal to h minus 100, weight equal to height minus 100. Imagining that is my weight determination algorithm given height. But you see, among the existing data collected, probably only 2 of them matched this equation. All others are somewhat different. So if my height is 160 centimeter, according to this equation, it says weight is 160 minus 100. That may not be always true, right? Some people who are very short may be very heavy in weight. Some people who are very tall may be lower in weight. See, this guy is quite lower in higher in height, higher in weight also. But this guy, for example, is quite short but heavy compared to this guy who is very high but still low in weight. So this is not a good example to calculate weight, because to weight not only based on your height, weight also depends on your eating habits, the country where you come from, your work style and lifestyle, and many other things. But we are taking a very simple example of weight given height. So I put this straight line and I see that lot of the existing data does not match with the straight line. So my next step is to calculate how much error it generates. So according to my straight line, this height means the weight is supposed to be this much, but here the weight is higher. So what is the difference? Maybe 10 kg, 20 kg, this is 5 kg, 10 kg, 0 kg, 10 kg, 15 kg, 0 kg. Like that I can find the error to understand how erroneous my equation is. And then I start adjusting my equation. Maybe instead of weight equal to height minus 100, I put weight equal to height minus 100 plus a constant c, or 2 weight minus 100 divided by 2 or 3, something. I just start manipulating my equation and try to find an equation which gives me the best plot. And once I get to do that stage, that is where I can understand my equation is reasonably good enough. Or if it is always erroneous, I also understand that these parameters are not only sufficient, I also need other parameters. Maybe the food habits, the disease medications of that person, the location where he is living in, sleeping habits, lifestyle. Once I have more data, I can potentially understand better. So as a parameter of multiple data, I can probably create a different line, may not be a line, maybe a curve, which can give the weight much more accurately. So what are the skill sets of a data scientist? First and foremost is mathematics and statistics. Without mathematics and statistics knowledge, you can never be a data scientist or a machine learning engineer. So machine learning, statistical modeling, Bayesian inference, optimization, all these are fundamentals or foundations of being a data scientist. And of course, you should have a good knowledge on programming and database, because you will be dealing with a lot of data. You need good programming skills like Python.
Sir, your slide is not visible.
Sir,
Hello.
sir, your
Hello.
slide is not visible, sir. Sir,
Can you see now?
yes, sir, yes, sir. Now it's visible.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, something wrong happened, sorry. So maths and statistics is a very essential area that you need to have knowledge on. And then programming and database knowledge, including big data analytics like MapReduce, parallel databases, cloud computing experience, including infrastructure as a service and platform as a service like AWS, Google, GCP, and all. And then domain knowledge and soft skills. For example, if you're dealing with the data from medical science, you should know what medical science field challenges are and what that data is all about. You may see all DNA, RNA information. If you have no idea about the domain, forget. You cannot do anything, right? Similarly, soft skills. How do I present this data? And how passionate I am about business so that I can interpret the data with authority. And then visualizations and communication skills, like ability to engage with senior management, dashboards, diagrams, everything. Okay, so with that, fundamentals on machine learning, artificial intelligence, and data science, being machine learning a very fundamental principle for key ingredient of data scientist. Rest of this session will focus on deeper aspects of machine learning fundamentals, and they are highly overlapping. So this will be very useful for you to start a career or do research in the areas of data science and machine learning. So what are some of the steps in machine learning? And this holds true even for data science, because this is all about gathering data from various sources, cleaning data to have homogeneity, and then using the right algorithms to process your data, gain insights from the model's insights, data visualization, transforming results into visual graphs. All these steps together form your foundations steps. So the steps involved when working with machine learning: setting the research goal, making a hypothesis. So setting a research goal, for example, I want to predict how heavy traffic will be for a given day. Make a hypothesis. Maybe I think the weather forecast is an informative signal for predicting heavy traffic. And collect the data. Can I collect historical data and weather on each day for last 6 months and last 10 years of same day, or 10 years of same week, same month, something. And then test my hypothesis. Now that I have this historical data, can I test and make sure that the weather forecast is really an informative signal? Does it help me predict the weather accurately? Then analyze the results. Are there existing systems? Is my system doing better? And then reach a conclusion. I should use this model to make predictions, or I should not use this model because of blah, 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 XYZ reasons. And then refine my hypothesis. Maybe not only weather forecast, but also a festival day, weekend, weekday, other factors that may help me decide the traffic of that particular city of that particular day. So first step, gathering data from various sources. What type of data that you will deal with when you deal with a data science project or when you deal with a machine learning project? There are 4 different types of data: numerical, categorical, time series, and text. Let us see them briefly. Numerical data, values or observations that can be measured, and these numbers can be placed in ascending or descending order. Scatter plots and line graphs are used to graph numerical data. There are 2 types of numerical data, maybe discrete and continuous. Discrete data, for example, is something that can't be measured but can be counted. Like a number of people who are attending this session today is something that is countable, right? Not measurable. Whereas continuous is something that can't be counted, but they can be measured. An example would be height of a person. I can measure the height. I cannot count the height, right? The height doesn't come in integers. It may be a real number, 169.3 centimeters. Categorical data, values or observations that can be sorted into groups or categories. like bar charts and pie charts are typically used to visualize categorical data. Maybe the eye color of different people, blue eye, gray eye, black eye, or the gender of people, the male, female, transgender, they are all nominal data because we can associate any input data with one of the given set of numbers, nominals, labels, and then count it. Or ordinal data where you count and order, like house numbers in a particular street. They are typically ordinal because they start with a small number, say 1 or 101, and then go all the way to the last number based on number of houses in that street. Or swimming levels in a swimming pool. You will probably see 2 meter high, 2 meter deep, 2.5 meter deep, all the way to 10 meter deep, and so on and so forth. They can be ordered, put it in order. Time series data. Time series is data is a sequence of numbers collected at regular intervals over some period of time. It is very important, especially in particular fields like finance. Time series data has a temporal value attached to it. So this would be something like a date or a time stamp that you can look for trends in time. For example, we might measure the average number of home sales for many years as a time series data, or the weather of a particular city over many years. And then text data, which is like just words. Maybe all the tweets about a particular hashtag in the last 6 months is a text data, unstructured, unprocessed. So having known different types of data, how do you get data? Very important part of our talk. First step that you need to know is where can I go and look for data? So I request everyone to note down this URL. I will share the slide nevertheless, but if you just search Google dataset search on Google, Google has a search engine explicitly for dataset search. So for example, I put here the coronavirus COVID-19 in the datasetsearch.google.com. It is giving me the World Health Organization reports as a data set and some US government's data on coronavirus disease, some mobility report from Google, both PDF and CSV files, and many others. So see, you can look for dataset right there by Google. Google knows the importance of datasets and the importance of heavy usage of datasets. So they have created a search engine exclusively for dataset search, where you can search by topic, free or paid, download formats, usage rights, everything. And you are not limited to that. I'm sure you may be familiar with UCI repository, Kaggle repository, Mendeley data. Okay, there's a spelling mistake here, Mendeley data, and many others where they have a list of data sets available. You can go search for data set. So you see here in Mendeley data, for example, they have 25 million data sets right at Mendeley data itself. 25 million data sets. It's huge, isn't it? Now this is excluding what is already there in Kaggle and UCI repository and so on, only in Mendeley. Now that is one way of getting data. Another way is generate your own data. This is an example of data sets that I generated for doing a research work. I wanted to classify Indian currencies. So I wanted to get pictures of Indian currencies and see different ways I generated data. I informed all my students in my college. Everyone, take your pocket, take all notes that you have, currencies you have, take a picture, send it to me in WhatsApp. In 10 minutes, I have a good data set already built from scratch. And do it a couple of times in different classes or different days, you get huge amount of data. So I generated a data set and we even published it in Mendeley. And see there are difference in texture, shapes, position, color. So that is good enough, right? It's a very good random data set generated. Or I have generated another data set for another experiment on Kathakali hand gesture recognition. And this data set is also available in Mendeley called Kathakali Mudras. So we generated hand gesture for different hand gestures of Kathakali and taken pictures in mobile phone, put them in a directory, and then finally used it for a paper, and also uploaded to Mendeley and made it public, so that someone who needs it can use it directly for their own research. So there are two ways of getting data. Either you go find existing data, or you generate data of your own based on your problem. Now that you have collected data, the next step is cleaning data. Cleaning data to have homogeneity. This is also called as pre-processing, data pre-processing. And one of the most important data cleaning or data pre-processing step is dimensionality reduction. So what is dimensionality reduction? Assume you collected data. You want to classify a given image as a male or a female, a boy or a girl. And you're supplying input data, which consists of color of the person's face, number of eyes, eye color, maybe how the lips are looking like, how the hair is looking like, whether that person has wearing a glass or not, a spectacle or not, a lot of such data, what color of shirt he or she is wearing. But you know, some of this data is not relevant for classifying a picture as male or female, right? For example, the spectacle, wearing a spectacle is nowhere related to a male or a female. Both of them may wear or both of them may not wear. So on the other hand, maybe how the eyes are looking like may be very important in determining the gender, or length of the hair, or the lips or the cheeks or whatever, some features of the face. So those features which are not relevant, let me reduce them, let me cut them off. That is one way of making my data more cleaned and processed, so that I can do more effective search. Otherwise, my algorithm may even consider wearing a spectacle. Unfortunately, if more images had boys wearing spectacle, it may start recognizing anyone who wears a spectacle as a boy, which may not be correct. So that is one way of reduction. Another way is dimensionality reduction is, we will see it later soon. The curse of dimensionality rule says for classification performance, data classification performance, up to some X number of features, my performance will be very high. The more features is actually bad. Like we know, too many cooks spoils the broth, right? So when there are too many features, algorithm is going to perform very poorly. As I said, the color of the dress that the person is wearing, the spectacle, they all doesn't matter for a gender identification. So having those data, which are more number of variables or features, are going to confuse the algorithm, and the algorithm performance is going to lower down. So this is a curse of dimensionality. Having more dimensions of data is not always useful. We may need to reduce. So in machine learning classification problems, there are often too many factors on the basis of which final classification is done. These factors are basically variables called features. The higher the number of features, the harder it gets to visualize the training set and then work on it. So dimensionality algorithms, reduction algorithms come into play. Dimensionality reduction can be broadly classified into feature selection and feature extraction. Before I explain feature selection and feature extraction, dimensionality reduction is applied for a lot of fields in real world, including CRM, customer relationship management, text mining, image retrieval, protein classification, handwritten digit recognition, intrusion detection, etc. So If you take document classification, for example, maybe I have different words appearing in different documents. Each term appears at 12 times in first document, 0 times in second document, etc., etc. Then based on the number, I want to classify that particular document as a sports document or a travel document or a jobs portal and so on. So I will apply dimensionality reduction to say reduce some of the words which are too common, which are not helping in classification. For example, the word the, the, it will appear in all sort of documents many number of times. I'm sure we should not consider that word when we classify a document, right? So that it will help me identify what terms to look at to accurately identify the documents. There are many other applications like gene expression microarray analysis, like to classify novel samples into non-disease types, where I have thousands of genes and few samples. So I will apply dimensionality reduction techniques to process it. And as I said, there are two important aspects of dimensionality reduction: feature selection and feature extraction. So feature selection is selecting the most relevant features. A good example is what I spoke about for identifying gender, human gender. So identifying a male and a female. If I want to identify male and a female, the selected features may be, the avoiding features may be wearing a glass, color of the shirt, and so on. And maybe color of the face, all these. Or, for example, from the same image, I want to recognize the person's gene as Indian, Chinese, Caucasian, etc. Then maybe color is important feature, right? Whereas some other feature may not be important, like length of the hair may not be important. But color and nose, size of the nose and many other parameters may be important. So selecting the right set of features from the given full set of features is feature selection. Okay, so feature selection enables machine learning algorithms to train faster. It reduces the complexity of a model and makes it easier to interpret. It reduces what is called as overfitting. There are different methods to do that. Set of features, selecting a subset, and then learning algorithms and understand performance. They are called filter methods. How do we filter out the right features? We are not going to go through each of them in detail, but they are all mathematical and statistical techniques which we need to know when we want to become a data scientist or a machine learning engineer. It includes Pearson correlation, ANOVA, LDA, etc. There are also wrapper methods, like I generate a subset, apply learning algorithm, regenerate a subset, reapply learning algorithm, do it a few number of times so that my performance is good. Or there are also embedded methods where I generate a subset, I apply learning algorithm, look at the performance, do I need to improve, go back and redo until I see that algorithm is giving a good performance. There are popular examples of embedded methods are lasso and ridge regression, which have inbuilt penalization function to reduce overfitting in such cases to give accurate results. And then feature extraction is another way, methods of constructing combination of variables. So let me give an example. Maybe I have a feature called pin code, city, district, state, country. Country and pin code alone can give me state and district and city automatically, right? So why do I need those data? I can combine them to form a field called address. And the address field is nothing but a field consisting of city and pin code. And that can potentially identify other things which are not required to explicitly input. So that is feature extraction. And there are a lot of algorithms for feature reduction. In the interest of time, we will not go through these algorithms. Maybe you will see some of them in the coming days of this workshop. So one of them, principal component analysis. FPCA, it is to reduce the dimensionality of a data set by finding a new set of variable smaller than the original set of variables. So an example is address given city, state, country, where PIN code is enough to identify all of them, which is much smaller in data size. So principal component analysis works on such a principle. Now that we have seen the basics of how do we get data and how do we do the basic principles on pre-processing data, the next step is to identify different types of machine learning. Third step, model building, selecting the right machine learning algorithm. I may want to classify a given image as male or female, or I may want to cluster them based on the gene of the person. And so based on what I want to do with the data, I need to pick the right algorithm. So there are different types of algorithms, and I classify them as 4 types: supervised learning, unsupervised learning, reinforcement learning, and deep learning. So we will see each of them in detail in the coming slides. Supervised learning is nothing but, you imagine a kid in the school is learning under the supervision of a teacher. Perfect example for supervised learning. So regression, for example, sales forecasting, or classification, grouping potential customers are examples of supervised learning. So in supervised learning, I use existing data. First to teach them, this is apple, this is orange, this is grapes. Apple, orange, grapes. Multiple times, so the kid will have the ability to understand a given fruit as apple, orange, or grape. Unsupervised learning. Assume you have a kid at home, a small kid, okay, 3 or 4 year old. You just mix some peanuts and some green gram or some dal. Mix them in a bowl and give the kid. And ask the kid, simply tell him, separate them. Don't teach him this is dal, this is peanut, nothing. The kid will have the ability to do it automatically because of the unsupervised learning principle. So that clustering there of separating peanuts from dal doesn't need any training. It can be done automatically by an algorithm, and that is unsupervised learning. Clustering, splitting customers by preference. And there are also reinforcement learning, which is a basis for robotics and drones and all other things. So which uses expected reward as an input to understand how do I learn, how do I survive. We will learn more about it soon. And there is also an extension of all these called as deep learning, which mimics our neural networks, which mimics creating artificial neural networks for learning, primarily used for a large amount of unstructured data like images, voice, video, audio clips, even text data. So among those 4, 2 most important classifications are supervised learning and unsupervised learning. Supervised learning, users known and labeled data is inputted, whereas unsupervised learning uses unknown data as input. Supervised learning, computational complexity is very complex because you have to train them, you need a lot of data. Whereas unsupervised learning is much more simple because based on the given circumstance, you are just going to learn. You see here, 2 very important applications of supervised learning are classification and regression. And 1 very important application of unsupervised learning is clustering. There are a lot of algorithms listed here. We will go through some of them very briefly. So supervised machine learning, step 1. You train your algorithm using labeled example, such as an input where the desired output is known. And then the learning algorithm receives a set of inputs along with the corresponding correct outputs. The algorithm learns by comparing its actual output with the correct input outputs and to find errors, and then modifies the model accordingly, and then use these patterns to predict the values of the label on additional unlabeled data. These are the 5 steps involved in a supervised machine learning, either classification or regression. So what is the difference between classification and regression? Very simple terms, but some people get always confused between these two. So let me tell you, regression is nothing but answering what is the temperature going to be tomorrow. Which is nothing but a number in the real world, in the real number series. It can be 84 degree Fahrenheit, 84.5 degree Fahrenheit, 84.75 degree Fahrenheit, anything. What about classification? Will it be cold or hot tomorrow? I predict it as hot or cold. So the output is one of the existing labels. If the output is one of the existing labels, then that is classification. If the output is a number on a number line, which can be anything, and we can call it as regression. So like whether something has a disease or not disease, or color as red or blue, are all examples of classification. A very good example that you use every single day is the mailbox in your email, in your Gmail or any other mails, where the mailbox classify the mail as right mail or spam mail, good mail or spam mail, is a very good example of classification. Whereas regression is the example that we have seen before. Given height, can I predict the weight? Because it's a real number. So that is regression. Many different models can be used. Simplest is a linear regression model, or there could be logistic regression and many other ways of doing regression. You can classify them. So let me not go through every line here. We can easily understand classification means it involves prediction from a set of discrete values, whereas regression is predicting from a continuous values. Classification is unordered because this can be red, this can be blue, red, red, blue, 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 red, 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 blue, 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 red, red, blue, 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 red, blue, blue, like that, any order. Whereas regression values are something that I can put on a number line, like price of a stock tomorrow, price of a stock today, or weather tomorrow, things like that. Can you spend 1 minute reading each line here and try to see each line as classification or regression problem? Let me have a sip of water. Okay, so predicting age of a person is a regression or classification? It's a regression because age can be 3 years and 12 months, 3 years and 5 months, whatever, right? Predicting the nationality, classification, because there are only so many nations. The person has to be one of them, including maybe the recently added Kailasa state, right? Country. I'm just kidding. And predicting whether stock price of a company will increase tomorrow. Carefully read the question. Whether stock price of a company will increase tomorrow. The answer will be yes or no, right? So this is also classification. Predicting gender of a person by his or her handwriting style. Gender can only be so many, right? Male, female, transgender, whatever. So it's also classification. House price based on area. House price can be any number on a number line, so it is regression. Predicting whether monsoon will be normal next year. The answer is yes or no, right? So that's also classification. Number of copies a music album will be sold next month. Also regression, a number on number line. Let's see some of these algorithms in brief. So I will go through some algorithms. Naive Bayes classifier. So remember, my aim is to give a gentle introduction to everything. So I'm not going to go into very deep of the whole mathematics behind it, then it will be very boring. So I'm going to give you an example based approach to let you know what is a Naive Bayes classifier. Later, I will also give a link on the slide where you can get a sample code on using Naive Bayes classifier, or you can just search Google. So let's take an example. Imagine two people, Alice and Bob, whose word usage pattern you know. To keep the example simple, let's assume that Alice uses combination of three words, love, great, wonderful, more often than Bob. And Bob uses oftenly these words, dog, ball, wonderful. Let's assume you received an anonymous email whose sender can be either Alice or Bob. Let's say the content of the email is, I love beach sand. Additionally, the sunset at beach offers a wonderful view. Can you guess who the sender might be? So if it is Alice, you will see more often love, great, wonderful. Do you see love here? Yes. You also see wonderful. And if it is Bob, you will see dog, ball, and wonderful. You see wonderful, but you do not see others. So likely that this is sent by Alice, right? Now let's add a combination and probability in the data we have. Suppose Alice and Bob uses these words with the probabilities as shown in the table. Like Alice uses love with the probability 0.1, wonderful with the probability 0.1, great with the probability 0.8. And Bob uses wonderful with a probability 0.5, love with a probability 0.3, and deal with a probability 0.3. And now the email is wonderful love. Now, what do you think? Given the probabilities, who might be sending it? Both of them uses the word love and wonderful, but the chances of Bob using them is very high. The probability is high, right? 0.5 and 0.3 compared to 0.1 and 0.1 by Alice. So given these conditions, how do I determine who might have sent this? You can easily correlate this to Bayes' theorem. Given something, can I determine something else? So this is nothing but Naive Bayes classifier is used for. So Naive Bayes classifier calculates the probabilities for every factor. Here in this email example would be Alice and Bob for given input feature. Then it select the outcome with the highest probability. So this classifier assumes the features are independent, which means love and great are not related. Love, deal, and wonderful are not related to each other. So hence the word naive in Bayes classifier. So even such a simple algorithm is very powerful for real-time prediction, spam filtering, recommendation system, and so on and so forth. Here is a link where it who gives an example of Naive Bayes classifier using Python. As I said, I will be sharing the slides. I will be putting the slide in my slide share and put it in my LinkedIn. Alternatively, you can also get the slides from the organizers. I will share with them. So you will be able to access these reference URLs mentioned in the slides. Don't worry if they're not small enough to write down. Another algorithm is support vector machine. A support vector machine is a discriminative classifier formally defined by a separating hyperline. Very confusing, right? Don't worry. Let me take it into a layman term. Assume you are given a plot of two label classes. You can decide how do you separate them. Very simple, put a straight line separating them, right? This is nothing but support vector machine, SVM. Find out a line on a hyperplane that can separate them properly. But this looks too simple. Let's make it complicated. Assume my data is this way. How do a line separate that black and blue? Very difficult. So one way to look at is put a third dimension. Instead of x and y axis, I put is z and y axis. So from a top view, maybe they are at one of them is at a higher point and one is at a lower point. So I am able to separate. Then put it back to transpose it back to my original plane of x and y axis. It forms a circle for me to separate. So if the value is less than what is there in the peripheral of the circle, it is black circle, and if it is value is more than this, it is a blue square. So this is support vector machine. Even more complex, I have a data like this. A straight line is not able to fit all of them properly. There are two ways to approach. One is finalize a straight line like this, which has little amount of error, but it works for most of the cases. Or find a polygon that can actually cross them very well. But generally, if the accuracy is sufficiently high, people recommend a straight line because this is too much of overfitting. If a black dot comes right inside this line, the line doesn't work anymore. It's very tough. So this is too specific. So it is little more generic with little error. 2 points are erroneous, but all other 90 points are correct. So I'm getting around, I'm getting some 98, 99% accuracy or 95% accuracy in predicting, in classifying. Enough, right? So that is a way support vector machine works. Okay, as I said, nothing will be staying back in your mind unless you code or understand the math behind it. So please go through the URL, code this code on your favorite editor, run and understand how it works. The third type of algorithm is decision tree. Decision tree is nothing but a sequence of decisions. It's a very popular machine learning algorithm. Decision trees often mimic human level thinking, so it is very simple to understand. You can see here, am I hungry? No, go to sleep. Yes. Do I have $25? No. Buy a hamburger? Yes, go to a restaurant. This often happens to us, right? The last few days of a month of salary, we might just eat some oats or noodles. Enough. Good for us. The day your salary comes, I'm sure maybe you will order something from Swiggy or go to a restaurant and buy something better. Let's say we have a sample of 30 students with 3 variables, gender, class, and height. 15 out of these people play cricket among 30 people. I want to create a model to predict who will play cricket during leisure period. In this problem, we need to segregate students who play cricket in their leisure time based on highly significant input variable among all 3. So there are 3 ways to look at. First, split by gender, which tells me 10 students, 10 females play, 2 females out of 10 play cricket, 13 males out of 20 play cricket. I can try splitting by height. It says people below 5.5 feet height, 5 people are playing cricket out of 12, and 10 out of 18 are playing cricket. And split by class. Class 11 people, 6 out of 14 are playing cricket. Class 10 people, 9 out of 16 are playing cricket. So you can see here the best decision comes when it is male female because there are 65-20, 65% people among males who are playing cricket. So maybe variable gender is able to identify best homogeneous set for first round of analysis. And then I will again relook among males, maybe by class or maybe by height. How are they doing? So if I take height, 4 out of 6 males play cricket. And if I take split by class, 4 by 6 of class 10 are also playing cricket. So we have to go through and understand which is a second feature that gives me a better decision until I see sufficiently divided among everything properly. There are different types of decision trees, categorical tree and continuous tree. So the categorical tree is something like, say, a student will play cricket or not, yes or no. the previous example. Continuous tree is like to predict customer income based on occupation, product, and other variables. So the value income will vary, and you will get a real value based on the parameters given. So for the decision tree, some of the basic terminologies include a root node, and the root node gets splitted into different decision nodes and finally terminal nodes. There are also leaf, branching. Okay. And how does a tree decide where to split? It uses different algorithms to decide on splitting. The creation of subnodes increase the homogeneity of resultant subnodes. In other words, we can say that purity of the node increases with respect to the target variable. And for that purpose, we use a term called as information gain. Look at this image below and think which node can be described easily. I'm sure your answer is C because everything is same, right? It's very easy. With minimal information, you can classify. Whereas A is very impure. It has multiple data in the same box, 2 types of data. And now we can build a conclusion that less impure node requires less information to describe. And information theory, if you have learned, gives you these concepts, entropy and information gain, as 2 different parameters to help you understand how well you can classify data given a particular condition. So let me skip this. Entropy is essentially used a formula to calculate how much it can define. And then given split by gender and split by class, I simply put values in my equations to understand which gives me better. So the split by gender has the lowest entropy among split by gender versus split by class, which means gender can give me a better information gain, better output, because information gain is 1 minus entropy. So that makes sure that, okay, I'm going to use gender to classify first. There are also something called as ensemble methods. Multiple methods are trying to solve same problem. For example, I have a data set of say 1 million data. I am taking 10,000 from them, sample random, apply to a tree, another 10,000 randomly on another tree, 10,000 random on another tree. All the results are aggregated to make sure I'm getting a final prediction. There are 2 ways of doing ensembling. One is bagging and one is boosting. Bagging is nothing but the same example. I randomly picked data, put it into a tree. Each trees are done in parallel. Finally, results are aggregated, averaged out. Boosting, on the other hand, is after one round of data analysis, some data has higher weight and some data has lower weight. That is getting inputted into next round, so on and so forth. So it is sequential until I come out of all my rounds. So, and I determine. So these are different ways to improve accuracy of my algorithm. So the comparison, bagging versus boosting, is a simple average in bagging means weighted average in boosting. And train and keep is a policy used in bagging means train and evaluate is a policy used in boosting. Okay. So doing this bagging or boosting to multiple trees is known as the algorithm called as random forest, where I have multiple number of trees scanning through different random subsets of input data, and then those predictions are finally averaged out, aggregated to make a final decision. So having multiple trees and multiple samples of data is proven to increase the accuracy of the model. So that is also the basis of random forest. Sir, let me ask you, what time should I stop for your
Sir.
inauguration function?
Sir, now it's starting, sir. 11 o'clock, sir.
Okay, so we will start after that inauguration function.
Yes,
Okay?
sir. We will sharply start at 12 o'clock, sir. 1 hour it's inauguration function is going on.
Okay.
After it's completed, we will start at 12 o'clock, sir. We continue our session.
Okay. Okay.
I request all our participants, please stay back. The inauguration function, Atal FDP is starting now. The YouTube link will share in the chat box. So our session will continue at 12 o'clock.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
So I will join back at 12 o'clock. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, sir, maybe you can stop recording right now and then start
Yes,
again.
sir. Okay, sir.
So
I
that
will
the
start it.
technical session and the inaugural sessions are all, you will
You
get different
start it.
recordings.
Yes, yes, yes. I will
Yeah.
start it.
Yeah. Thank you.